pre-employment drug screening, post-incident drug and alcohol screening, random drug screening, post-injury examination. These services are needed prior to the hire of an employee, when the employee is due to return to work from an injury, for fitness for duty, and when an employee is involved in a work-related incident. These services are provided year-round, including during the peak hiring seasons, April through June, when there are usually 7 mass hiring sessions for seasonal positions that involve up to about 500 applicants per session, who must be screened and tested. Off-peak pre-employment and fitness for duty testings can reach 30 applicants per day. Mercy Hospital and Medical Center has been providing these services to the Chicago Park District since 2002. Their staff is experienced and is properly licensed, trained, and certified to provide all the services required. Similarly, their labs are properly certified and equipped. Lastly, they have proven capacity and capability to provide the services remotely at the Chicago Park District mass hiring sessions and processing the tests for these sessions efficiently. Therefore, it is the best interest of the Chicago Park District to award the contract for post-offer treatment for occupational illness and injury and alcohol and drug testing to Mercy Hospital and Medical Center. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Mike, can you tell me, so when we go down, we look at the breakdown of this, one of the things that you have, one of the line items here is something called pre-employment functional capability testing. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Have we done that in the past, and is there specific plans as to how we're going to do that in the future?
We have not done it in the past. Part of the accreditation for CAPRA and DPRA, we were deficient in that we didn't have a pre-employment examination. So, in part of the IFB, we requested for the bidders to include costing for that. Now that we have a cost proposal to us, the district will then establish a policy to determine if and in fact we will use this part of the IFB.
Okay, so this line item is something that we're not necessarily going to do. If we develop it, they will deliver the service, but we may in fact decide not to do it, and in which case you won't pay that line item.
And that is true.
Okay, thank you.
Can we get a motion to approve the item?
So moved.
Second.
Will the secretary take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
Vice Chair Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
President Trobert?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Thank you.
Item number 2 from the Director of Information Technology, authorization to modify the contract for an enterprise content management system.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm not the Director of Information Technology. I'm Brendan Daly, the Director of Strategic Development. I'm the Project Manager for our Enterprise Content Management System. So give me 1 minute while the PowerPoint pulls up. Here we go. So good morning, President Traubert, Commissioners, Superintendent Kelly. The board letter before you today requests authority to increase the amount not to exceed in the contract with Electronic Knowledge Interchange by an additional $1.5 million over the next 3 years of the contract. EKI has worked with us to create our SharePoint Enterprise Content Management System. Enterprise Content Management, just as a refresher, is an intranet that allows us to manage and share documents, automate workflows and paper processes, and is a searchable database. The last time we were before you was over a year and a half ago for approval of the project. In our original discovery sessions at the beginning of the project, we identified 145 potential workflows, processes, and projects that could be a good fit for SharePoint. I'd like to thank all of the staff that participated in those discovery sessions for their time, which allowed us to take a paper process, make them more efficient, and build them into SharePoint. Following the initial discovery sessions, we have created a robust intranet system for all full-time employees to access. In addition, we were able to provide email access for all full-time and year-round staff, thus enhancing our ability to communicate as an organization. EKI has managed to create 85 workflows, processes, intranet sites, and other tools for us to use. These include performance metrics, IT request forms, board letters, superintendent letters, risk management incident forms, access permits, special event permit internal management, reprographics request, beats reports, capital staff project tracking, session program scheduling, including aid request forms, fitness equipment service request forms, travel requests, professional and staff service agreements, creation of an RFQ, security work availability tracking, various HR forms, leave requests, training modules, and partnership forms. In addition to all of those workflows and processes, each department has an intranet site. These sites can be used to store documents for the rest of the organization, HR policies, for example. These sites can also be used internally to the department for collaboration. We have tried to make the system user-friendly and have placed some of our most commonly used forms and processes onto what we call an employee self-service page. For example, partnership forms are now being managed in SharePoint. Partnerships are typically agreements with an outside organization like AYSO Youth Soccer, where the organization agrees to assist us with field maintenance, for example, or reduced costs for participants in exchange for use of the fields. In SharePoint, a park supervisor can now log on and enter the information into a form. The park supervisor goes through a series of questions and clicks the correct answer or corresponding answer based on that particular partnership. We are also able to capture good data and metrics on those events, such as participant ages. Once the form is complete, it is then routed electronically for review and approval to the area manager, region manager, risk management, HR, legislative and community affairs if necessary, and finally to the chief programming officer. This process before SharePoint was fairly complicated and had potential for lost documents or lost time. Excuse me, time as the information was routed for approval. Now in SharePoint, the process is straightforward. It is also much more transparent. At any given time in the approval process, the park supervisor or any one of those levels of approvers can log in and search for the partnership to see where it is in process. They can also see if any of the approvers need more information. So if risk management wants more information on a certificate of insurance, the park supervisor can see that risk has entered comments as to what they need. There are also automatic email notifications built into the process to help it move forward. In addition to improved transparency, we also benefit from improved efficiency. We estimate that the partnership process is 60% more efficient than the old paper process. We have done this type of analysis for each of the processes and workflows that we have put into SharePoint, and we average that for all of our processes, we are 60% more efficient. Because of increased efficiency, there is also a cost avoidance. The partnership form has 5 levels of review and approval. These people are located in 4 different places. In a paper process, that means circulating those documents to 4 different locations, which takes a lot of time. Using SharePoint, the process becomes more efficient, which gets our staff out from under paperwork and makes them more available to the public for programming, for example. Because we are using less paper, there is an actual cost savings as well, which you can see demonstrated on this slide. Just these 3 processes alone, we estimate almost $800 in annual savings by using SharePoint. Taken together, our improved productivity, we estimate an annual cost savings and cost avoidance of $250,000 a year. This is just the 85 workflows, processes, and tools that we have in place now. With 85 workflows and processes automated, we would like to automate the additional 60 that were identified in the original information gathering sessions. SharePoint that automates 145 workflows and processes will require more personnel from EKI to train our staff and provide ongoing support to us. Moreover, this additional work will allow the automation of our workflows and processes to continue uninterrupted, reduce paper, and improve efficiency in the administrative operations of the Park District. This work to expand the current enterprise content management system is germane to the scope of services of EKI's contract. Further expanding the current enterprise content management system so that it will automate more document workflows and processes will help us realize cost savings and improve efficiencies in our administrative operations. Therefore, it is in the best interest of the Park District to modify the contract with EKI to increase the amount not to exceed by an additional $1.5 million to accommodate continued automation of our workflows and processes, staff support, and training. Finally, I would like to add that other government agencies are actually looking to us as a leader in using SharePoint to become more efficient. We have met recently with the CHA to demonstrate our intranet and have plans to meet with the RTA as well to share our lessons learned and demonstrate the system. And I'd like to thank Craig Watson from EKI, who is here as well. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Steve Maris, the Director of IT, is also here if there's a more technical question that I wouldn't be able to answer.
First of all, we talked about this we have a pre-board meeting about a week ago. We talked about this, and you've been tremendously responsive in putting this presentation together. So thank you. And things are always more complicated than the simple questions I ask, but I'm going to still ask you a very simple question. If you just looked at this on a cost-benefit analysis basis, I know you talked about savings, but overall, what is this going to cost us, and then what do you think the savings are? And it's very difficult, I know, to try to quantify that in the time that we have all these park supervisors that they could save.
Well, and thank you for that. I'd like to thank EKI too, who helped with that analysis, particularly in the efficiencies, which is the hard one to quantify. You know, you take a park supervisor who typically, would route something that looks like this, which is a partnership, one partnership. It would have to go to multiple locations, multiple people. That takes a lot of time for that park supervisor to do. Now that they can go into SharePoint and click through and put it all into SharePoint, they don't have to do it all at once. They can do it as they receive information. That gets them out from the office and in front of our customers and doing more programming. So it's a very difficult question to answer because that's a difficult number to quantify our staff time. I think an easier one to quantify is paper savings, which is a lesser amount. But what I would point to is sort of a return on investment calculation instead. If you look at what we're spending on the overall SharePoint, what we've already created, the 85 processes, and what we'd like to create going forward, it's about $4 million over about a 5-year period, right? So given that we are estimating our cost avoidance and cost savings at about $250,000 a year, that's about a 15-year return on investment, and I think that's a conservative estimate.
Okay, and then can you just tell me a little bit? So I'm out running a park. I'm a park supervisor. I'm doing all kinds of stuff, and now you're giving me this. And so how do you integrate this, and how do I learn how to do this?
It's a great question. I can demonstrate if I may by. Let me just go back to the form if I could. So this form is the partnership form that I was using as my example before. It actually looks no different than the paper form. In the paper world, this was all the information that we were collecting. What's great about this is that we've built in automation and choices for the park supervisor. So, for example, you'll see that first field is park. We have all of our parks on a drop-down. We have regions and areas. The other thing that we do is an automatic partnership tracking number. So as I mentioned, the partnership can go in now, start entering information. If they get a phone call or if they're called away, they can save their work. They can come back to it later. So really what we've done is we've taken our existing paper processes, which everybody's familiar with, and tried to recreate that so that it looks well, it doesn't feel like a paper process, but looks like the paper process in the electronic world. Additionally, we are doing trainings. We're doing department-specific trainings. If a department has a very specific process that was built into this, we've trained their staff. We're going to park supervisor info sessions. We're continuing to have ongoing training. Within SharePoint itself, there's a mechanism for requesting support, information, and training. There's also, for each one of these 85 workflows and processes that we built in there, there's a self-guided training module. So you can be, if you have 5 or 10 minutes, you can download the video that will walk you through how to fill out this form. There's also a PDF that will demonstrate how to fill out this form. So we're doing our training, sort of combining it with hands-on training as well as self-guided learning modules.
Thank you. And again, thank you. You've been tremendously responsive to all the questions I had about this.
Thank you.
I have one question. So understanding that we were pretty far behind and that it takes some investment to catch up, so to speak, but what's our expectation in the future around this investment? Is it going to tailor off significantly? We're still going to probably need to carry some level of investment?
Yeah, Commissioner, that's a great question. So what we're here before you today is to ask for an increase in the amount not to exceed to accommodate 3 years going forward of support, training, and additional development. Steve can certainly answer this question, but I think what our plan is to integrate a lot of this into our IT department as we get more familiar with the system and build that capability in-house. Also, the training is a good example because we have a Department of Workforce Development. They have really stepped up and taken on a lot of the training for SharePoint in-house. So our own staff have learned processes that they may not work with on a day-to-day basis in workforce development, but they've learned the process, how it works, so that they can go out and sort of train the trainer, if you will, going forward. So that's our plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If no other questions, can we get a motion?
So moved.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Thank you. Okay, item number 3 from the Director of Facility Management, authorization to enter into a contract for building automation system, maintenance and repair services district-wide. Mr. Arlo?
Good morning. President Traubert, Commissioners, General Superintendent, and CEO Kelly. My name is Robert Arlo. I'm the Director of Facility Management. I'm here this morning to recommend that the General Superintendent and CEO or his designee enter into a contract with Anchor Mechanical Incorporated for maintenance and repair services for the district-wide building automation system. The contractor was selected pursuant to a publicly advertised request for proposals. No work may commence, nor no payment shall be made to vendor until the execution of a written agreement. The Building Automation System, or BAS, is currently installed at 52 Park District facilities, and the functionality it provides Park District facility management personnel includes a detailed real-time look at the HVAC and other systems at these facilities from a computer, and the ability to operate the HVAC and other systems at these facilities from a remote location. Technically, the Park District's BAS consists of a supervisor station and network area controllers at the 52 facilities, which integrate into a central server. In order to keep the networks and server up to date and operating correctly, the Park District needs a contractor to perform general preventive maintenance and repair services on the BAS. Additionally, as the CPD expands the BAS to include more facilities, a contractor will be needed to integrate the new and/or existing equipment into the district-wide building automation system. Anchor Mechanical Incorporated has previously provided integration, repair, and troubleshooting services for the Park District's BAS system. They have the ability, capacity, and experience to maintain and repair the system. Therefore, it's in the best interest of the Chicago Park District to award Anchor Mechanical Incorporated the contract for building automation system maintenance and repair services district-wide. Thank you. Are there any questions?
No questions? Okay. And can we get a motion to pass this matter?
So moved.
Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the Committee on Administration. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Motion carried. The Committee on Administration is now adjourned.
On this day, Wednesday, November 13th, 2013, at 10:54 a.m., a meeting of the Committee on Capital Improvements of the Board of Commissioners of Chicago Park District is being held in the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building located at 551 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Yes, sir. Excuse me. A meeting of the Committee on Programs and Recreation.
I'm
Let the
sorry.
record reflect.
I'm on the
sorry.
wrong one.
No. You're fine. You're fine.
It is the
And I'll
Committee
take
on
a-
Program and Recreation.
It certainly is.
Correct.
I'm sorry, sir. Chair Commissioner Salgado?
Here.
Vice Chair Commissioner Allen?
Here.
Commissioner Edwards?
Here.
Vice President Lavelle? President Traubert?
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Koldyke is not present, I'm sorry, and General Superintendent Michael Kelly is in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. Item number 1 from the First Deputy General Counsel requests to initiate the 45-day notice period to name North Bridge a feature in Jackson Park in honor of Nancy Hayes. Dorothy?
Good morning, President Traubert, Commissioners, General Superintendent Kelly. We're having a little technical difficulty right now, so I think I'll just get started telling you about the first of 3 park namings that we are being asked to put in motion. It's recommended that an order be entered authorizing the General Superintendent or his designee to initiate a 45-day notice period to solicit public input to name the North Bridge in Jackson Park leading to the Wooded Island in honor of Nancy Campbell Hayes. The Jackson Park Advisory Council has requested that the Chicago Park District Board name the North Bridge in honor of Nancy Campbell Hayes. The proposal has the support of 5th Ward Alderman Leslie Hairston, the Hyde Park Historical Society, Hyde Park Kenwood Community Conference, as well as petitions from more than 200 people. Nancy Campbell Hayes was a photographer who passed away in 2007, an environmentalist who devoted most of her life to protecting and improving Jackson Park and other Southside parks. She established herself as a photographer and spent decades photographing local events, including the 57th Street Art Fair, Hyde Park Garden Fair, and she joined the Hyde Park Kenwood Community Conference and served on its Parks Committee. She was involved in founding Friends of the Park, and in 1975 she served on its board for 4 years. Nancy was also a founding member of the Jackson Park Advisory Council and bequeathed her entire photography collection to the Hyde Park Historical Society. The Jackson Park Advisory Council has suggested naming the North Bridge in Nancy Campbell Hayes' honor, and this seems appropriate considering her longtime association and involvement with the park and the Hyde Park Kenwood community. We move on to the second park.
Can you just tell us a little about the North Bridge?
The North Bridge is in Jackson Park. We do have letters of community support there in your packets. If you do not find those, we can get those to you. Nancy Hayes, you'll find that there are going to be other people speaking about Nancy Hayes today. She was a tremendous force in the community and on behalf of the parks, and that's why the Jackson Park Advisory Community Council would like to name her.
Want to do it? Stay. You want to stay with the first item and do the speakers now, and then
The speakers are here?
Yes.
Yes, we have two speakers.
Why don't we take the two speakers?
Yep.
And then we're going to take this one park at a time. So I think
ask
we
that
have
you-
Gary M. Osawar here to share some words with us.
Mr. Oswald?
Louise, you want Louise to speak first? That's
Commissioner Salgado and Vice Commissioner Allen, Edwards, Lavelle, and President Robert. Thank you. This was the first thing I took on as President of Jackson Park Advisory Council 3 years ago. Thank you for making it happen. The important thing to say, and I apologize because I thought this was going to be a small room with 3 people, so I only brought one picture. But this is Nancy Hayes. Nancy Hayes was a force to be reckoned with. You never said no to Nancy Hayes because Nancy Hayes got it. In 1990, when I was out in the soccer field carrying 5 carloads of 24 goals out to the field at 4 in the morning with the drug dealers along 63rd Street, Nancy was there. Nancy would be there to make sure the folks didn't park in the grass, make sure the folks didn't bother the bird watchers. Nancy was always present, and she was amazing. Good, I got the picture. I brought pictures of the bridge, but you have a picture. The North Bridge, and I just share one more picture because it kind of shows the gateway concept. The North Bridge is that gateway from the Museum of Science and Industry, that lasting building that was left for the World's Fair of 1893, to the Wooded Island, which is that wonderful piece of ground that we have so lovingly over the years created to be able to have a place where families can come in peace and quiet and enjoy nature, where birds and animals can come in peace and quiet, where you can come and just appreciate how amazing it is to be in the middle of a huge city like Chicago and have squirrels and beavers and raccoons and coyotes and 220 different species of birds that come through, and ducks and geese. It's all there. Most of it thanks to Nancy Hayes, who went to bat and came to all these committee meetings, came to all the Friends of the Park meetings, helped put together the Jackson Park Advisory Council, and made it happen. The bridge does need some work, and JPAC is volunteering to do the work. You'll see there's lots of paint peeling. The graffiti that's managed to come there over the years, we try to get off quickly, but again, needs a little bit of work, and we're happy to make that happen, because this is where Nancy took pictures.
Please make your closing remarks.
In closing, just to say, Nancy was a person that the community depended on about things in nature and things in Jackson Park. Please, please, please name this bridge. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for being here today. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr.
Gary?
Osaward?
Good morning. Good morning, President Robert, Commissioners, CEO and President Kelly. It's a great occasion to be here to honor my great friend Nancy Hayes. I'm currently Secretary of the Jackson Park Advisory Council, and on the boards of some of the organizations that have endorsed this project as well. She came to Hyde Park and she had to document it. She had to preserve it. She even worked on waking the city up that all these elms were dying and needed to be taken out and things as well. The bridge itself, well, is an important connector, and a lot of work is being done by the Chicago Park District and its contractors, for which we are highly grateful, along with other organizations too, going from Osaka Garden around the bridge area. It's going to be wonderful. And we have nature trails through the wooded island. We have a huge corps of volunteers working in that area now as well, with under our site stewards who are under the Department of the Natural Resources. I want to thank Adam for all the wonderful things that he has done there as well. And I think it helps to make our facilities, where possible, have a name connected with them. Things to it humanizes it. And I just want to thank you all again, and we will all continue to work together.
Thank you.
Ms. Tranter?
Good morning, Commissioners. Irma Tranter, Friends of the Park, Superintendent Kelly. We're here in support of the Jackson Park Advisory Council's request to name the ridge after Nancy Hayes. Nancy, by legend, I don't have a picture of this, by legend, in the 60s, in the late 60s, when there was a plan to put a roadway through Jackson Park, Nancy chained herself to trees to prevent them from being taken down. And she continued with that mode as being a very passionate, strong woman in protection of the environment. Nancy, and specifically, was passionate about Jackson Park. And then, I mean, it was really all South Side parks. She spread up north, up through Burnham Park, but that was about the extent of her northernmost passion. And I know this because she was on our board for decades. And you bring up a South Side Park, and you know Nancy was very responsive. Whereas a North Side Park, she was like really laid back. But the other important thing that I don't know that no one here was on the board at the time, but Nancy, for at least I can remember 10 years. I don't know if anybody else remembers this, but she came to every single board meeting and testified on any of these action items that related to Jackson or Burnham Park. Every single board meeting, and this was at the admin building in front of Soldier Field.
Please
That's
make your
how
closing
much
remarks.
time she devoted to parks and to protecting parks, and we're pleased to add our support to the naming of this bridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all the testimony. If there's no further discussion, is there a motion on this matter?
Yes, ma'am. HAYS.
There's no further discussion. Can I have a motion on this matter?
I move to approve.
Second.
Will Secretary take a roll call for adoption of the matter?
Commissioner Salgado?
Aye.
Vice Chair Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
President Roberts?
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 2 from the Deputy General Counsel, request to initiate the 45-day notice period to name Pratt Beach Park in honor of Toby Prince. Dorothy?
Again, good morning. I'm a counsel in the law department on behalf of our First Deputy General Counsel. I bring to you a recommendation to authorize 45-day notice period to solicit public input to name Pratt Park Beach in honor of Toby Prince. Fred Schein has requested that the Chicago Park District name Pratt Beach in honor of his mother, Toby Prince. The proposal has strong support from elected officials and community organizations, including Congressman Jan Schakowsky, Cook County Clerk David Orr, Alderman Joe Moore, and the Loyola Park Advisory Council. Ms. Prince was active in the civil rights movement, She was a teacher, community activist, and advocate for lakefront green space who made substantial contributions to her Rogers Park neighborhood and to the city as a whole. As I said, she was actively involved in the 60s civil rights movement and attended the March on Washington in 1963 and helped organize Education versus Racism, the second conference in the U.S. to promote the teaching of African American studies in schools, an award-winning initiative. She strived to encourage open housing practices in Rogers Park and was founder and leader of the Rogers Park Tenants Committee and had a long-lasting influence on Chicago's housing community. And naming Pratt Beach in honor of Toby Prince will be a fitting tribute to Toby Prince and the extraordinary commitment she made to her community and improving the Rogers Park community.
Is there any discussion on the matter?
Is there a motion?
So moved.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior manager to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 3 from the Deputy General Counsel, request to initiate the 45-day notice period to name Park 503 in honor of Clara D. Schaefer.
Thank you. Again, good morning. And it's recommended that an order be entered authorizing the General Superintendent as designated to initiate a 45-day notice period to solicit public input to name Park 503 in honor of Clara D. Schaefer. The South Chicago Community Association has requested that the Park District Board of Commissioners name Park 503 in honor of Clara D. Schaefer. This proposal has the support of the 10th Ward Alderman John Pope and the community. Clara Dorothy Schaefer was a nurse and hospital administrator who saved the South Chicago Hospital, now Advocate Trinity Hospital, from extinction. Born and raised in Chicago, she had considered pursuing a career in opera or theater, but decided to devote her life to helping others. She became superintendent and administrator of South Chicago Hospital. At the time, 30-bed facility nicknamed Pill Hill was on the brink of bankruptcy. The State Department of Public Health threatened to close the small hospital, but she turned the institution around, making it one of the most important facilities in the community. Schaefer was deeply committed to the hospital and the people it served. She was known to shop for and cook hospital meals, scrub floors, and visit vacant rooms, and she helped make the Chicago Community Hospital School of Nursing a great success. After serving in her position for 38 years, she retired in 1957 and won many awards, including an induction into the Academia Cultural de las Ciencias Humanities of Mexico, and was the subject of a biography entitled The Light on the Hill. It is a fitting tribute that this park be named in honor of Clara D. Schaefer.
Alderman Pope supports this?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's a phenomenal life and fascinating to hear the story. Where does this request come from? Is it a community group or a...
Yes, indeed. The South Chicago Community Association, the local community organization.
And how do we typically, just to help us, because we've got a lot of these requests now, but you know, what's the typical vetting process that we'll do?
Well, I think okay, it's done pursuant to code, but it's usually generated by the public, community groups, or a public official. Mm-hmm. In this case, it looks as though these were generated all by community groups for all 3 parks that you see today, and they all have both community and political support from their communities.
And then, Commissioner, there's a 45-day vetting period. Rarely do we get any negative feedback in these situations. I think on a couple of occasions we have. And then we would come back to the board in roughly 2 months for a formal approval of the park naming. And usually any letters of support, political support, elected official support would be in that final package.
And Mike, I note here, you know, that I guess we send to advisory councils, notify advisory councils located within a 1-mile radius of the subject park.
That's correct. Yes.
Do you also, just as a courtesy, pretty much without exception, notify and consult with the alderman?
Absolutely, absolutely. We wouldn't name a park without notifying the elected officials.
In this case, there's actually a letter from the 10th Ward Alderman.
I think so.
You should find it in your packet.
Yeah.
And if not,
Yes.
we'll get it to you. Actually, as I understand, it's being driven by the Alderman's office.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. So if there are no further questions, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the Committee on Programs and Recreation. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Motion carried. The Committee on Programs is now adjourned. On this day, Wednesday, November 13th, 2013, at 11:12 a.m., a meeting of the Committee on Capital Improvements of the Board of Commissioners, Chicago Park District, is being held in the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building located at 551 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Chair Commissioner Koldyke. Vice Chair Commissioner Salgado.
Here.
Commissioner Allen. Vice President Lavelle. President Robert.
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Edwards and General Superintendent Michael Kelly are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. Item 1 from the Director of Planning and Construction, authority to accept the transfer of approximately 40 acres of property located at 83rd and Lake Michigan from the City of Chicago for the expansion of Park Number 566 and the transfer of approximately 2.55 acres of Ellis Park to the City of Chicago. Rob Raymond.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's recommended that the Board of Commissioners of the Chicago Park District adopt an ordinance authorizing the transfer of property located at 83rd and Lake Michigan for the expansion of Park 566 from the City of Chicago, and adopt a resolution to transfer Park District-owned land at Ellis Park to the City of Chicago. It's further recommended that the Board authorize the General Superintendent or its designee to negotiate, enter into, and execute such agreements, amendments, indemnities, and instruments to perform any on all acts as shall be necessary or advisable in connection with the transaction. Here on this slide, you'll see the location of Park 566. Again, it's 7901 South Brandon, Ward 7. This is an overall of the site. To the far north, you see Park 566 in green. That is currently 40 acre. I'm sorry. That is currently a 17-acre site, and this is expanding it by another 40 acres. In this area, we've acquired quite a few properties as of late, up to the tune of 100 acres in Park 503, Park 523, Park 566, and then the expansion in yellow that's the subject of this particular transfer. At Park 566, there has been some recent mud to parks work. We've been bringing in soil, planting in cover crop, a few trees, and some sidewalks along recently opened US 41 South Extension by CDOT. The second item on this board letter is again a transfer of some property at Ellis Park to the city. This is an aerial of the site. It's 2.55 acres. And this is to make way for some plans underway with the city and other community groups, including CHA, for future development of a potential community center in this location. It's anticipated that this property could be then returned to the Park District, either via transfer or lease at the end of the development of that project. There is no capital funds in either of these transfers. It's again an acquisition of the 40 acres at USX, and then this 2.55 acre disbursement of property to the city for the time being. If there's any questions, I can take them.
So this second action, where this is you say it's in anticipation of a community center. Are you able to tell us a little more about that?
Sure. There's Community Builders Incorporated, several groups. The vision for this area has been going on since the early 2000s with groups and the Big Chicago Hope Grant. There are many plans that were hoped for and grants applied for, some of which have more traction than others. This is just one piece of that puzzle that the city's working on currently with the community. They're looking at this particular location, and because the the properties, some of it's CPS, some of it's Park District, in order to help just pave the way administratively to look at this through the city's guidance and the mayor's office guidance in cooperation with the aldermen. We're helping to just facilitate that planning process.
So what happens, Rob, if, I mean, obviously the best outcome here is that, you know, something marvelous happens on the site.
Right.
But what if nothing materializes?
We can take the land back. In any case, it's still either owned by the city or the Park District as a public asset. So,
For those of you who are maybe not as familiar with the site, just to the west of Ellis Park is a vast amount of formerly the Madden Wells property, acres upon acres of undeveloped land. When the CHA took over the property, they actually demolished a community center, and we're in talks with them now about helping them with another center that's called the Abraham Lincoln Center, which is nearby. However, in keeping in line with sort of the mayor's vision and the CHA's vision of transforming that area, it's not unusual for us to work with them on a planning and development side of putting the land together to sort of take the best step forward for the development. So I'm optimistic that we will be able to find the money and the partnership to build a new community center for the community. If Commissioner Lavelle was here, she would probably testify how badly they need it in that area. But there's so much land swap that goes between us and the city and us and the CHA that overall I wouldn't be concerned. If the property couldn't be developed and we wanted the land back, we could get it back.
and just in terms of stats, since 2000, we've received about 800 acres from the city, and we've given about 18 acres in various smaller deals like this to help facilitate developments in a planned growth way. So we've been netting out a lot of additional acres over time.
The other, at 4 o'clock too, I would want you to testify on, with this proving this up, where we're at now with our total acreage of the district. It's been a while since we reported to the board what that is.
Any further questions?
Yeah, so Rob, we want to make sure the community is well served. And so the community has input. This is something that there's a lot of discussion about. But the community process then, once we give up this land, goes somewhere else.
Correct. We'll be, of course, coordinating with community builders, the aldermen, city's Department of Planning. What we want to do is to help to facilitate this in any way we can, knowing that there's so much support for this idea, and we just want to be there as a partner and continue to do our part.
And this is community driven. Mike referenced Commissioner Lavelle, and Commissioner Lavelle is extraordinarily enthusiastic about this and thinks that this is a terrific project, and a project where the Park District, CPS, Chicago Housing Authority are coming together to make something happen, potentially happen for the community. So I wish she was here because she feels really passionately about this project.
Is it on the community center? Is that something that we would potentially run, or is it something that we would?
Right.
Okay.
We'd be very interested in running it.
Okay.
Not so much paying for it.
Right. Okay.
And obviously, Mike, getting way ahead of ourselves, but as part of potentially running something is to completely understand operationally what that takes and the costs,
Right.
et cetera.
Will, I would point toward the Pingtown Fieldhouse is probably the model that we obviously recently opened, is the model of what an operating facility of, what is that, 20,000 square feet, 30,000?
I think it's 24.
Okay, so we'll have a better handle on what the actuals are on that
Right.
in 6 months.
Are we voting on both of these, or are we voting them individually?
They're together on our agenda, Brian.
Okay.
But I'll take your suggestion.
No, that's fine. Could you just go back to the other one then, and
Certainly. So again, what you see in yellow is a 40-acre expansion of Park 566 at USX. And the second item is a 2.55-acre distribution of land to the city at Ellis Park.
And just, I guess, a question on the 40 acres. If you go back to the map on that, well, remind me, what's the big plan for all of that, right? That's,
most of this property at USX is owned by McCaffrey, and they're working with the city's Department of Planning, and as well as with us. We meet with them periodically to take a look at their development plans. They've been modified several times over a few years.
Can you point out here that the McCaffrey land is, can you point that out?
Let's see, here we go. It's this property, following the outline, all the way down to the south slip, and then back up. And our property, as has long been planned, in order to keep what, Chicago is very interested in keeping a continuous public lakefront, and that's why you see the Park District parcels always being lakeside of the development. So this is just continuing a really long-standing planning tradition.
But our plans for that space are sort of going to be dormant until the overall plans for the area.
Where we get mud to parks or outside funding for development of the parkland. Actually, at Park 523, we took the mud to parks benefits and just converted it to a nice rolling passive space with some pathways, benches, and whatnot. And so that's a very passive park, very low investment. And we think then as the development continues, we're doing our part to green the space and to provide a park-like setting at this point.
Because what we found, it was just slag, right? Or a lot of it was?
Right. The land that's there now is slag built up, from
this
material.
This is really, if you guys, maybe you've been out there, this is really worth going out to see. It's fascinating. But so this is just slag, and then we've got mud from, was it Kankakee River, or where Joliet? Lake Peoria.
And they've been barging it up. They bring it into that slip that's dividing the site. They offload it, and they cart it to the different parts along our property. We just got a bunch of material laid down at Park 566, and so that's sort of greened over. That was the photo I showed, and then it's still a slag field south of there, and that'll be the next stages of development. The Mud to Parks program is a really beneficial thing for us. You can't really grow anything on slag. It's almost like a volcanic rock coarse material that's very porous. So you need some clay material down to help retain moisture. You need some growing medium. You need soil with a lot of organics in this, and the Mud to Parks program is providing that for us free.
In this little inlet, they've left some remnants of the industrial facility that was there, right?
Yeah, there's some pretty massive ore walls down there. It's almost like Egyptian in scale when you go down there. So there's some interesting relics from its industrial past, and I think some of the plans have contemplated leaving large portions of them just to reference the history of the site as a steel manufacturing area.
Whose ward is this?
Pope.
This is Pope's ward.
Maybe the far north end is not the very tip of the north end, but the vast majority of it is Pope. Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions? No? Not. Can I have a motion on the matter?
So moved.
Second.
Will the secretary take a roll call for adoption of the matter?
Vice Chair Commissioner Salgado.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
President Trobert.
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 2 from the Director of Planning and Construction, authority to acquire approximately 0.09 acres of property at 2422 South Trumbull for the expansion of Julian Hope Lemus Park, 1066. Rob Raymond and Tim King.
Thank you again. It's recommended that the Board of Commissioners of the Chicago Park District adopt a resolution authorizing the acquisition of property located at 2422 South Trumbull Avenue for the expansion of Lemus Park. It's further recommended that the board authorize the general superintendent or his designee to negotiate, enter into, and execute such agreements, amendments, and indemnities, and instruments to perform any and all acts such as may be necessary and advisable in connection with the transaction. Lemus Park is at 2410 South Trumbull. It's currently 0.34 acres, Central Region, Ward 22, in South Lawndale. This is a overhead of the site. Currently, it's just a small play lot, 0.34 acres. There's a lot next to it that's 0.09 acres. There was a structure on there that was demolished. It's vacant land. This is just sort of a routine process for us when we see vacant land come up next to our smaller pocket parks, and they're available for sale. In this case, there was $9,000 in let's see, OSLAD fees, or OSLAD money to acquire the property. We negotiated a price of $7,000 and kept $2,000 for our closing costs to cover all costs associated. This will be a future Chicago Plays site, so a new playground will be coming, and this is just to help expand that park, again in the South Lawndale area where park space is pretty precious. Oh, there are no environmental issues that we found. So,
Any questions?
40 to .09.
Yeah, so 40 to .09. But just to make that comment, in this community, the .09 makes a big difference.
Right.
And so any .09 you can get a hold of in the 22nd Ward is, will be well used.
yeah, agreed.
So if there's no
Is there a
further
motion?
questions?
So
Motion?
moved.
Is there-
If there's no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 3 from the Director of Planning and Construction, authorization to issue change order number 1, restoration of the Van Buren Footbridge and North Star Stair in Grant Park. Rob Raymond.
Thank you. It's recommended that a change order be approved to FH Passion SN Nielsen in the amount of $200,000 for restoration of the Van Buren Footbridge. The original contract amount was $2,944,000. Then the new contract amount will be $3,144,000. The M&WB participation are now at 25.2 and 5.03 with this change order. The contract time would be extended to June 27th, 2014. You're all familiar with where this bridge is in Grant Park. This is the exact location. And what you see here is we went through a search of our drawings and found that the bridge was originally built by the Chicago Park District in 1903. It was then torn down and rebuilt in 1925 by the Chicago Park District again, spanning from one piece of Park District-owned property to another over the air rights of the current railroad. These are the drawings from 1925, again, drawn up by the Park District. This is a few shots of what it was, the deteriorated condition. It was getting pretty bad. It was a dire condition we had to respond to quickly. There was concrete spalling off and falling onto the rail platform below. What you also see in the lower hand photo are some of the electrical lines that run parallel to the tracks and are suspended from the bridge. There's a lot of coordination with Metra and utilities required for this. There's a bunch of high voltage lines that we have to work around, as well as train traffic immediately underneath the bridge. So most of this work is overtime and requiring Metra forces as well as our contractor. This is where, some shots of where we're pouring at the bridge right now. Again, this change order represents the costs associated with the additional labor and fees payable to Metra for their direct anticipated expenses related to the construction coordination required due to the Van Buren footbridge restoration. The contractors paid Metra 50% of the deposit in the amount of $200,000, and this was required along with their acceptance of our right of entry to start the work. The initial deposit was funded by our allowance of $180,000 to cover those costs, plus $21,800 from our built-in contingency. This change order amount in the amount of $200,000 addresses the balance required to satisfy the projected Metra fees at this time. And if there's any questions, I can take them.
So, Rob, what are we all in on this thing?
All in, it's $3,144,000 for total restoration of the bridge.
Okay. And, obviously, being the Chicago Park District, we would love to spend that $3 million plus on providing services for kids and recreational programs, almost anything but fixing a bridge. Yeah. And we've had a long discussion about this, and you were good enough, we talked about, is there any way someone else ought to be doing this. do we really own this? Historically, did we build it? Does it connect? And you've done the research, and we're stuck with this, right? There's no way out.
It's a really old deal. So, you know, is there airtight paperwork on every single thing? No. I mean, when you're looking at 1924. However, when you've got the drawings showing that we built this as an appurtenance to our own property, it's difficult to do anything other than respond to life safety issues on that structure when you have to.
Yeah, and, you know, not that probably no one wants to have this offered to them, donated to them, but once we get this done, is there some, at least negotiation, something that you could approach? I mean, who should generally own bridges in the city of Chicago?
Well, the City of Chicago Department of Transportation inspects all bridges, including this one and our other bridges that are in the parks. It would be great to have CDOT step in and potentially help us out with more of these kinds of things, potentially transfer these kinds of appurtenances to our properties to CDOT. We'd love to talk to them about it. There's a lot of things that we do for CDOT and with CDOT, so potentially it's a conversation we can have in the future.
Yeah, I know we're all in this together, but this just seems like a liability that, you know, I know you agree that if there was any way to get out of this going forward, it would be great. So I would just ask you to pursue that. Thank you.
Definitely.
A similar question, are we aware, what's our total liability out there? Is there other bridges that we should be worried about?
We do. I don't have a number on all the bridges we own currently with me right now, but we do own a number of bridges in our parks. You know, one that was named today, you know, it's a small footbridge. We also have passerelles over Lakeshore Drive that are under our ownership. We do not own any underpasses. So I think an overall discussion as it relates to these structures, especially over train tracks, Lakeshore Drive, or other public right-of-ways, I think that's a discussion we definitely should be having.
I'd just like to make a suggestion that as you compile that would be a great thing for this committee to actually review, understand, and as Brian is suggesting, figure out what the appropriate, you know, place for this, landing place for this is.
I can pull information together on those facilities and make it available.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further discussion? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
If there's no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 4 from the Director of Planning and Construction, authorization to enter into a contract for Park 553 construction.
Thank you. It's recommended that an order be entered authorizing the General Superintendent or his designee to enter into a contract with Friedler Construction Company for the construction of Park 553. The contractor was selected pursuant to a publicly advertised invitation for bid. Construction is to be substantially completed within 337 consecutive calendar days after notice to proceed. That's estimated, again, to be mid-November with a late 2014 opening of, hopefully, most of the park, and of course probably some spring plantings and other punch list items being completed in spring of 2015. The contract amount is not to exceed $10,059,000. There is 25% owned, minority-owned participation and 5% women-owned. Park 553 is at 2800 South Sacramento, Central Region, South Lawndale. This is an aerial of the site. It's currently capped with gravel, so it's a giant gravel site, 20 acres, a little over 20 acres. And this is a rendering of the plan. So work includes converting this former 22-acre brownfield site into an open recreation facility supporting both passive and active recreation. The park development includes environmental remediation and oversight. That's just for areas where we have to penetrate the cap, and there aren't too many of those, but utilities and whatnot. Amenities in the developed park include, here's again an axon that sort of highlights all the elements that are included in the plan. It includes 2 artificial turf soccer fields with sports lighting, 1 natural grass baseball field, 1 natural grass softball field, a large playground with challenging equipment, water and a water spray feature, a comfort station with vending opportunities, skate park, basketball courts, parking lot, promenade through the park, open lawn areas, pathway lighting, and landscape elements throughout the park. It's a massive development for us. It's the largest brownfield redevelopment happening in the country, and this is in an area that was, the ranked second in open space need up until very recently. This project's changing that. It's going from second to sixth, especially now as we're looking at open space needs around the city and taking a close look at also CPS properties and how they play in. But it's a really good story, a great day for this community. We're super excited about this project.
Rob, before I obviously turn it over to the commissioners, I did want to interrupt. So this project's probably been before this board at least half a dozen times over the years. It is extremely important project to us. And, pardon me, my question is, have we satisfied the community?
The last board meeting we had some people come up and talk about basketball. Basically, there was this is a great project. We're so happy we're this far now. We want to talk about the number of basketball courts. We met with the group in the back of the room. We added another basketball court, rearranged the skate park to accommodate it, worked it into the plan. That was the last bit of community input that we responded to. Again, that was, I think, either a design issue with this or with a change in design. I can't remember. But we addressed it at that time. We were able to within this $10 million budget. We're there.
And commissioners, there is another parcel of land the community wants us to acquire and build a field house. Neither the land or the finances are available at this time for that part of the project.
So Rob, I've just been around here for 3+ years, but this is a huge deal, as Mike acknowledged, and bringing it to this point has involved a lot of work, Park District staff and community. The community's been passionately involved, and this is a big moment to get this done. Park 553 was a park formerly known or referred to as Celotex and marketed for a little while as the big park in Little Village.
Yeah.
But we're going for now just with 553.
We're looking for suitors and sponsors and branders. And we're trying to discipline ourselves and stop calling it Celotex. After all, they're the ones who were responsible for polluting the site in the first place.
That's right.
Yeah. And we've capped this. It has been capped with gravel. So how do we deal with? You can penetrate that cap in some instances.
Yeah, you can modify it in instances with IEPA oversight. So basically, we're still enrolled. Everything we do is reviewed by IEPA and approved prior to it being done. So we've had some review processes throughout the design process just to locate where utilities might be going. If we do penetrate the cap, how it's done, how the material is handled, how it's backfilled, and how what park features come on top contribute to either strengthen the environmental protection on the cap above or maintain what it is currently.
So with all the activity that's going to be here, how are we dealing with restroom facilities?
Part of this plan includes a restroom facility there in the park right next to a concession. So we can, it'd be typical to what you'd see in a sports complex where you can go up, get a hot dog, soda, or some other healthy snacks. And then there's a shade structure there. So we do have a building. It's a modest building, but it's really providing a function, and it's centrally located.
Rob, with the environmental issues that you're bringing up, how is that factored into this cost proposal? Is there sufficient dollars allocated for anything that might be unexpected or added things the EPA may ask us to do?
Yeah, because the site's so well known, there's not unforeseen conditions are kind of hard to come by. I mean, we know what the cap is made out of, and so when we issue this for bid, we're able to put in the specifications exactly what must be done to legally handle any material and to restore the cap. So I don't think we're in this condition where we're running into unknown, USTs or something like that. It's a pretty well-known site. So we do have some modest contingency. I don't exactly remember the percentage of contract, but I don't see us running into any major issues whatsoever related to environmental because so much is already known, and we're doing this in concert with IEPA.
So we really shouldn't be seeing change orders or
Related to
on this?
environmental, no, I can't see that. If there was some other unforeseen thing that I can't anticipate, we'll be back in front of you. But I would love to deliver this project to bring final pay with no change orders on it. So
We'd
that's the
love
goal.
that too.
And as best practices, you carry what kind of percentage for change orders? 2, 3, is that the?
I would have to look at this one, but as a general practice, it depends on the size of the project. A really big project like this, it's not as, like a real small renovation project, you might need 10% because one small thing could be a huge percentage of budget. On this one, it could be 5% or something, but I'll get you the information.
Okay, and so you had 5 bidders on this?
Yeah.
And when you see a spread, like so low bidder comes in at 10 million and the high bidder comes in at 15 million, do you go back to that 15 million and or to the 10 and say, did you guys really get this to be that far apart?
Where there's a real far outlier, they just drop off, whether it's low or high. If it's someone really low, a low outlier, we've got to bring them in and talk.
Yeah.
Because that's just a recipe for disaster to issue a contract with a misunderstanding from the beginning. High outliers, we typically just drop off, but the bids in here are pretty tight.
Yeah, you had 4 that are pretty tight. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you have them pretty tight like that, let's just say Friedler and you've got Key, and they're pretty doggone close, right?
Yeah.
What does how do you look into qualifications on this?
I think on this one we had qualifications built into the bid, basically the providing examples of work within this same magnitude or scale of this project. And then in this case, we don't really have much because we have the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, we know as a qualified candidate, Friedler, we've done work with them in the past, good work with them. We just haven't had any concerns in this bid.
Okay.
When's opening day?
We'd like to be. Yeah. There you go. Fall of 2014.
Stay tuned on the groundbreaking.
All right, wonderful. I think we do have a speaker, right, on this topic?
Yes, we do. Ian Viteri? All right.
Okay. If there are no further questions, then do we have a motion?
So moved.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Edwards has left the meeting.
There's no objection. We'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 5 from the Director of Planning and Construction, authorization to enter into a contract for design and engineering services for Morgan Park Sports Center.
Thank you again. It's recommended that the General Superintendent and CEO or his designee enter into a contract with the architecture firm Studio GC Incorporated for design and engineering services for a new sports center at Park 577. This contractor was selected pursuant to a design and engineering pre-qualified pool request for services. The contract amount is not to exceed $1,047,706. Included in that is a basic services fee for design of $970,000, the remainder being reimbursables in on-site testing and exploration. There is 30.54% minority-owned participation and 12.18% women-owned. The funding sources for this project in total, we were designing to a project budget of around $12 million. We have $2 million in Park District funds, $4 million in DCEO state grants, and $6 million in anticipated city TIF funds that we're moving forward to a design to budget for. This is the site, again at 11505 South Western Avenue, 115th and Western. 115th currently goes between the north and south parcels. The north parcel was a former gas station that's been demolished, and the south parcel is a former grocery store that was demolished.
The station was cleaned up.
Yes, it was. This plan, I just rotated it so the north is to the left and Western Avenue runs along the south of the page there. You see that north parcel would be parking. It's anticipated that there would be a road closure, cul-de-sac at 115th, and then the gymnastics center and ice rink would then be on the south parcel. This is just some facade diagrams and overall blocking, so you can see again the north parcel with the gymnastics center, the shared use facilities for locker rooms, concessions, and the ice rink. And I'll just sort of read a little bit more through. The scope of services excuse me, includes architectural design and engineering associated with the development of the Morgan Park Sports Center, The consultant will produce concept images, construction drawings, and a complete bid package, including all relevant technical specifications, schedule of unit prices, cost forms, and any other relevant materials with an updated project project cost estimates. The consultant will coordinate with other city departments and agencies as required to secure all necessary permits for this development and be responsible for all documentation, modeling, calculations, and other services associated with LEED certification from the Green Building Council. Site investigation work will include a topographic utility survey, ground penetrating radar scan of the 2 subject properties, and soil sampling for geotechnical testing and environmental classification. A traffic engineering study, including data collection and traffic modeling, will also be provided by the consultant in anticipation of the roadway vacation. The consultant will also provide construction administration services and site observation services during the project construction and problem resolution 6 months following project completion. The sports complex will consist of a new 55,000 square foot building, which contains an indoor ice rink facility and gymnastics center, as well as support program, including skate rentals, concession areas, meetings and party rooms, viewing areas, offices, restrooms, and team locker rooms. The gymnastics center will be designed to accommodate standard USGA competition events for men and women, as well as a large pit area and in-ground trampolines for additional training opportunities. The indoor ice rink facility will be a state-of-the-art skating facility to accommodate year-round competitive hockey, figure skating, and recreational ice skating. The sports complex will expand sports and recreational opportunities in the surrounding community and give beginner and elite athletes the opportunity to learn and excel at these sports and promote a healthy, active lifestyle for this community. If there's any questions, I can take them.
So Rob, this will be our second indoor ice rink, right? We have McFetridge this is the
Correct. We have
other one.
McFetridge on the south side, and this would be our second one. I'm sorry, north, of course.
And
this on the south.
Before we get into the business of having a second ice rink on the south side, what do you do from a demand and market investigation?
Actually, yeah, our CFO and our finance department have been looking at this area in terms of demand and costs to operate and potential revenues. And Steve Lux is here, he can actually expand on that a little bit.
Good morning, Mr. President, Commissioners, General Superintendent, CEO Kelly. With respect to the question of demand and feasibility, there was a feasibility study that was performed. The original study related to a facility that had 2 ice sheets or 2 ice rinks, and that was completed back in April of 2011. In that study, there was 3 different scenarios were put together where basically scenario 1 was more where the park district was the operator, and it was more related to community activities and not a lot of expectation on renting ice time and utilizing the ice time for other entities. And that did show operations would have a loss of about $100,000 per year. The second scenario showed a model that was a little bit more aggressive in utilization, but the park district would still operate the facility, and that showed net operating income of anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000 over the 10-year projection period. The third scenario, which is going to be very similar to how McFetridge is currently operated and how we plan on utilizing the facility, is to have an expert operator run the facility and be aggressive in renting ice time and looking for anchor tenants that could rent a lot of the ice time. That net operating income showed a profit between $200,000 and $300,000 during that 10-year period. But once again, since that initial study was really based on a facility with just only 2 ice rinks and not a gymnastics center, I'm in the process right now of getting bids to have that feasibility study updated to the more current model where we have a gymnastics center and an ice rink. And I hope to have someone on board in the next week, and then it's probably going to take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to have the study performed.
So with so much resource coming in from other sources, who are the champions for this site?
The alderman and the mayor.
Alderman and the mayor are the champions for the site?
Yep.
Okay. And what's been the community participation around the site?
There's been a series of community meetings the vast majority of, there's a small minority of non-support. They don't want 115th Street cul-de-sac, but the vast majority of the community is wildly in favor of this. As Steve had mentioned, we originally looked at this as 2 sheets of ice. That cost is roughly around $15 million, which was, quite frankly, was too much. Hockey, it was documented a couple weeks in the Tribune. Ice time right now is in high demand, and that's in large part the success of the Blackhawks. Gymnastics, on the other hand, is one of our, I think it's our second most popular program. And years ago, we had a gymnastics center in the Daly College facility, and we moved out. The conditions were deplorable, and we've been looking for sort of a top-level space on the south side ever since. That, coupled with Chicago State, is also asking for their space back. So I think it's a nice business model, and I'm sure the analysis will prove it out, that with both, we're not beholden to just one sport, the hockey and the gymnastics. The support on the ice rink, just me personally, has been tremendous. I think I probably could have entered into 4 contracts the day we did the announcement with the youth hockey and 3 of the high schools. Hockey right now is booming, and I see no reason why we couldn't get market value, $300, $350 an hour to support the ice time. McFettridge was losing almost $1 million a year ago. We're going to probably turn it to about a $300,000 profit in 1 year under changing the way we manage our ice rinks. I see no reason why we can't do the same here.
Just on a personal note, I grew up about 10 blocks away from this, so I know how important it is. I also know how diverse a part of our city this actually is. So what has been the conversations with the full diversity of the community to really take advantage of this opportunity?
Well, gymnastics already is extremely diverse in the city. As far as the rink goes, I met with a couple of community members. Speed skating, figure skating, those tend to be a little bit more diverse than, say, pure ice hockey. But I see no reason why this site doesn't function as a complete diverse site for anyone and everyone. You live there. It's a diverse area, and hopefully it'll appeal to everyone.
I just would like to make a concerted effort by the Park District to reach out to the full extent of the community to open up the opportunity of a new sport, or to those communities who may not be as engaged, if you will, in this particular sport.
So just, again, total price of this facility, and then amount that the Park District will ultimately have in it?
We're looking at a $12 million overall budget. That's about $1 million in design and $11 million for construction, just roughly speaking. And again, it breaks down to $2 million for the Chicago Park District. Yeah, it's $2 million for Park District, and then thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? If not, can I have a motion?
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Also, let the record reflect that Commissioner Edwards has returned to the meeting.
If there's no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the Committee on Capital Improvements. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, and the Committee on Capital Improvements is now adjourned.